Welcome to Careers in Discovery, your window into the world of biotech leaders. On each episode, we interview the industry's leading executives to understand how they built their careers, what they've learned along the way, and the advice they'd give to their younger selves. This week on Careers in Discovery, Emma is in Finland with Henri Huttunen, Chief Scientific Officer of Herantis Pharma. Henri talked about the next generation molecule that Herantis are building to cross the blood-brain barrier and tackle neurodegenerative diseases, as well as his early days in academic research through to founding startups and eventually leading Herantis' mission. He talks a lot about the importance of balancing scientific rigour with innovation, navigating the risks of challenging established dogmas, and the role that personal passion has played in driving his success.
Welcome back to Careers in Discovery. This week I'm joined by Henri Huttunen, Chief Scientific Officer at Herantis, based in Finland. Welcome, Henri.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here.
Can't wait to hear your story. I suppose a great place to start is to talk a little bit about the work that you and Herantis are doing at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So very briefly, Herantis Pharma is a small Finnish biotech aiming to develop novel disease-modifying therapy for Parkinson's. And also some related diseases are on our agenda, but we're currently focusing on Parkinson's. And the way we go about it is we've been working with unconventional neurotrophic factor called CDNF for many years. And now, a few years ago, we were able to develop a next generation molecule that mimics the activity of the protein in a smaller format. And this new molecule can also penetrate the blood-brain barrier. So we're quite excited about this.
Very exciting. And we've seen a few disappointments within the areas of neurodegenerative disease recently. Will this make the difference?
Well, we certainly hope so. I mean, yeah, it's been really tough, but an interesting road. I've been in this sort of like neurodegeneration business for most of my career since the late 90s, early 2000s, and we've certainly learned a lot about the heterogeneity of the diseases, the disease mechanisms, but also how difficult it is actually to run clinical trials with disease-modifying molecules when practically the tools that you're using are something that were developed for symptomatic trials. For example, the Unified Parkinson's rating scales they're not very good tools for these type of therapies. So we kind of like need to invent also the clinical trial side a little bit all over again.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing. I'd love to go back to the beginning and how it all started. So what drove your career in science, particularly within drug discovery?
That's a good question. So I guess I have something probably in my genetic heritage. My dad was a biochemist, although he was trying to tell me at the high school age that do something else, pick something else, not this, do something else. But I guess he was trained in the late 60s, early 70s. It was a bit of a different business, in the 90s with recombinant technology, DNA technology, and this and that. So. And also, it's my sister is a pharmaceutical chemist, and my brother is a neurologist. So I guess,
wow, it really is in the DNA.
that's something that's it's part of my story, I guess. So
yeah,
and so I got into my basic studies of biochemistry and got actually pretty excited about that. And at the same time, my grandparents started having health problems, and I think retrospectively thinking this must have been affecting some of my career choices. So I have 3 of my 4 grandparents suffered some form of neurodegenerative or related condition, and seeing that very closely, how little there was to help them, that was devastating. And so it's sort of like naturally at that stage when I was trying to look for my, what's the thing that it really, makes me tick.
Yeah.
It was a kind of like a natural combination that I started getting really interested in this type of science, molecular neurobiology, and eventually also then looking at disease mechanisms and drug targets and so on. So I think that's probably where it all comes from.
Yeah. Yeah. And having that personal link, that must really drive you forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I think of every day, but every now and then, particularly when someone asks this type of question, then you kind of like you stop for a while and you think and you realize that, damn, I've been doing this for decades, and where did it all start? And you realize that yes, there are clear, connections to my personal history there.
Yeah, yeah. So talk to me through your career story, sort of from leaving university, particularly the most formative parts for you.
Well, for me, leaving the university has been a very slow process because basically I've been a bit back and forth. So I did my PhD in biochem at the University of Helsinki, focusing on things related to developmental neurobiology, axon growth, signaling mechanisms, this type of thing. And then when I graduated I think defended my dissertation in 2002, I worked for a little while for Orion Pharma, a mid-sized Finnish pharmaceutical company who had just a little while ago launched their big Parkinson's drug, Stalevo. Entacapone was the API. So I was there for about a year, and then I got a really interesting proposal from my future PI. So I actually went for a postdoc in Mass General, Harvard Medical School. It was a project related to Alzheimer's drug discovery or early drug development, new targets, cholesterol, lipid metabolism related mechanisms. So it was really great. I ended up staying for nearly 5 years there. I loved the place, loved the environment, the project, everything was great. But then, as things sometimes go, we decided with my wife it's time to settle, and we actually moved back to Helsinki, where I founded my own lab at the Neuroscience Center at the University of Helsinki. Actually, I was running the lab until just a few years ago, for more than 10 years. However, most of that time I've been part-time. So it was a bit of a juggle balancing the academic research. And as in 2008, I got involved in this startup discussion with some senior colleagues. They had a few interesting early, development project assets, CNS related. And they asked me to join to form or found a new company, and I ended up the first CEO, the managing director, and at the same time when I was trying to build my own lab. So it was a bit hectic, and it was one of the defining moments, probably. Yeah. Taking that decision was not easy, but I decided to see that path. And I ended up, that path ended up becoming my career, actually, and Herantis. So in 2014, I shifted as a full-time CSO to Herantis, and for many years I was then still running the lab at the university with the help of a co-PI. I was able to juggle these two activities. So, leaving the university was a very slow process for me.
How you talked about juggling between the academic work and working in a startup. What are the skills that are important? What made you be able to be successful in that venture when you're doing both?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer that, but maybe I can try. Well, I think probably something that has been very beneficial for me is the strong roots in science, in the basic research, and that experience, that practical lab work, supervising students, writing grants, developing hypotheses, discussing the science. I think that has been a very big benefit now. I also in the company, and
Yeah.
I like to think that I've been able to help to create a culture in this small company that thrives on high quality science, and the decisions that we make are rooted in the science and the data. And it's actually great sometimes talking to clinicians, for example, when planning clinical trials and stuff. We've heard many times that our science is really appreciated, that we're doing good things on in the right way, asking the right questions, and producing high quality data. I think that's key for everything in this business.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that is skill. It's more like a background.
It sounds like a little bit of what you were talking about. It sounds that the work that you were doing in the lab really set foundations for you to then to move on to be a CEO.
Yeah, and of course that my CEO stint was fairly short. I really I guess I like the science too much to be too administrative. But definitely, I mean, that was also a useful part. When we had just founded the company, and I was running after investors and discussing with the university on tech transfer issues, and trying to identify first service providers and partners and team members. That's obviously, I mean, it's something that you need to step out from your comfort zone in a big way.
Yeah.
And that has been very, very helpful later on as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what would be your key lessons that you've learned throughout your career when you've been forming those decisions to take those big leaps and to be brave and take those opportunities when they arise?
Well, I guess it's one thing, again, retrospectively thinking is that there's been a couple of decisions that have, at the time have the situation has looked like, do I have the courage to take this route, this path? It's so risky. If I just stay on this current path, I mean, that's the more comfortable way and probably more secure way. So I think some risk taking has been involved in my decisions there. But again, retrospectively, no regrets, because usually they have led to good things and new things, new opportunities and new openings and so on. And I think one thing also that has been I've noted now that several times in my science career, I've been in a situation where there's been kind of like strong dogmas in the science, and it's kind of scary to challenge them. And there are certain things, and science is never ready. We know that. I mean, it's something that it evolves all the time, and new studies, new data are incorporated in the existing hypotheses and so on. But sometimes, things look pretty fixed and settled, and it must be like this. These big labs are all showing this, and then it's contradictory with your data. And it's a damn scary situation. I mean, do I have the guts to go after this? Your gut feeling, your intuition is maybe telling you that there's something here, and on the other hand, there's this big scary dogma, staring you in the eye and saying that you don't have the guts to do this. I mean, and it's really scary. But I've seen things change in a remarkable way when these dogmas are kind of challenged, and how new data can change things in incredibly big ways. I mean, for one, I'll tell you one example. This was very early in my career. I was doing my PhD with Professor Heikki Rauvala's lab in Helsinki, and we were working with the protein that we called amphoterine, and we saw that as an extracellular secreted protein that regulates axon growth and developmental neurobiology thingies. And at the same time, there was the rest of the world, like 99% of the world, we're seeing it as HMGB1, a chromatin-associated nuclear protein that never gets outside of the cells. And it was really hard to publish things because we were kind of like the minority fighting against that big dogma.
Yeah.
Until then, in 1999, I think, there was this big paper from Kevin Tracy's lab in Science showing that HMGB1 is actually a potential cytokine regulating the cytokine storm in septic shock. And that changed everything. And suddenly, this nuclear protein had become everybody's pet and favorite for a new cytokine.
Fantastic.
So I think it was a great example as a young scientist, looking at these dogmas and seeing how things can actually change with a single finding, single study that pushes everybody to challenge their thinking.
Yeah. And that then gives you that confidence must stay with you to then continue to challenge the status quo.
I believe so. I'd like to think so, at least. The science is never ready, and you need to be able to challenge things every now and then. It's not all about that, of course.
No.
But every now and then you get into a situation where you have to challenge your own thinking, actually.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Important is mentorship and things like that when we're talking about challenging and to sort of back up and have support for the ideas that you've had.
It's important, and of course, at different stages of one's career, you may see it a bit differently. I'm very happy to work in a very, very forward-thinking, great small team. It's fantastic. I really prefer working in a small organization where you can really, exchange thoughts on a daily basis in a very transparent way. But of course, there's sometimes you need to go outside of that comfort zone and challenge your ideas with other people. And what's been really enjoyable to me in my current position is all the partnering discussions that we have with the big pharmas and companies bigger than us who may see things in a very different way, and those discussions and those questions are actually often quite enlightening, and you sort of like, I've realized that I use them maybe partially subconsciously developing my own storytelling, because sometimes storytelling is also important. So you sort of like shape up your storytelling a little bit based on the feedback that you hear from very diverse backgrounds.
Groups of people. Ways would you say the large pharma is different to working in a small biotech when you're having those partnering discussions?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the big pharma tends to be this massive ocean ship that when it goes into one direction, it takes a month to change the direction. For them, maybe a decade. While of course, a smaller biotech is more agile, maybe also in some cases can be more innovative, can perhaps go after targets and pathways and maybe technologies that it takes much longer time for the big pharma to adopt. And that's actually one thing I like in my current position as well, that it allows certain type of flexibility and innovation.
Yeah. If you think back, what one piece of advice would you give to somebody who's early in their career?
It would probably be find the passion, because when it's sort of like if you're lucky to find that, it keeps you driving in so many different ways. It's the fuel, you know.
Yeah.
Even if you enjoy your job on a daily basis, that type of passion can still carry you through the tough
Yes.
times and so on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier said than done, and I'm not sure if you can really force that. But
Yeah.
I think it's good to be aware that when you kind of like, when you find something that you're sort of like natively interested in,
Yes.
don't be afraid to go,
Yeah.
follow that intuition.
Yeah. And it sounds like your passion found you. And sometimes it might happen that way round.
Could well be. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's right.
Be really interested to know what's next. What's next for Henri? What's next for the business?
Well, for Herantis, we're now heading into a very, very exciting time as we expect to complete the ongoing phase 1b study in Q3 next year, and then planning the phase 2 study, which is the first clinical trial to really address the efficacy of the new drug. That's a very exciting time, because we really need to design that study in a very not entirely novel, but not very conventional way either. I mean, we probably need to focus on a sub-segment of patients, some kind of a prognostic predictive enrichment strategies, possibly driven partially by genetic information, biomarkers, sort of like a little bit of the personalized medicine approach, just to tease out those efficacy signals from that data. So that's pretty. It's scary as well, because it's not.
It sounds quite revolutionary. Yeah.
But it's pretty exciting, and I've been along since the very beginning for this company, so it would be for me, it would be really a dream come true to see that trial read out positive, and perhaps the partnering side moving forward, and because eventually what matters to me is to get new treatments to those patients who so deserve better treatments. And again, going back to my early career story, that connection is very important to me. So I think that's the next step for both the company and probably for me as well personally.
Yeah. How do you go about when you haven't run a phase 2 trial before? How do you get yourself ready and absorb all the learning that you need to move to this next phase?
We actually run a couple of phase 2 trials, but in different indications, very different, and even different therapeutic areas. So they were very much perhaps more conventional in that sense, the readout sense and patient recruitment sense. But it is particularly, I mean, as you said in the beginning, this is a field filled with failures. Clinical trial failures, at least. So of course that's something that's in the back of your head all the time. We basically, as a small company, we have one shot and goal. We can't keep on trying, another trial after another trial, like, the amyloid immunotherapy field went on for 20 years. We can't do that. So we need to get it right, at the first trial.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. Really wishing you all the best of luck, and be keeping a very close eye on how things progress.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here, and hopefully some of the listeners find the story interesting. I don't know.
They definitely will, for sure. Thank you, Henri.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe and share it with someone else you think will benefit. And for more podcasts, videos, blogs, and insights, come follow me, Tom Froggatt, on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Medium, or TikTok. See you next time.